merch announcement. So make sure you come support. Go buy a tee, dude. All right, what do we got here? So last week we talked about the God of High School. We talked about some of the theory that went into making a title sequence and an intro like this. So that was really cool. So that's really nice. But today we have a new anime title to talk about. So looking at this from a high level point of view, today we are going to be talking about one of my favorite animes of all time, Kill la Kill by Trigger Studio. Hey Mary, what's up? How are you? Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, we just launched it. So if you want to come support, there's also a way to win in the Discord. So make sure I'm going to be announcing that right after this stream. So make sure you guys stay tuned. Then nudity is a superpower. I love Kill la Kill. Bad time to start the music actually because we're gonna watch the intros. Let's watch the intros real quick. Hopefully we don't get DMC'd. Let's watch the intros and we'll talk about it. Let's do it. Kill la Kill intro. There's two intros. Yep, this is the first one. Huge pause champ. So we won't run this whole thing, but I'll just let this... oh no, we will run the whole thing, but I just want you guys to see it and then we'll talk about it. Kind of a lot of interesting things going on in this one as well. Damn, I forgot the intro has nudity. It kind of like semi-nudity in it. I kept paying. Shout out to all the people watching Sailor Moon for the first time in front of your parents, and then it's like, what the hell is going on when they transform? That's a bit of a pause jam right there. You never seen this, Nima? Oh man, Mango, it brings back my memories too. This is like such... I gotta rewatch this. This is one of my favorite animes of all time. Believe it or not, I think this was my introduction to Trigger. Even though I've seen many Trigger things since, I believe this is my intro to Trigger, believe it or not. Stan Trigger big time, dude. This was yours too, Asian? Love to see it, man. Zave, believe it or not, Gurren Lagann was not my first. I saw Kill la Kill before Gurren Lagann. They did do Gurren Lagann, I just didn't watch it first. I don't know what to tell you guys. Yeah, Asian, I did too. That's funny. Alright, that was the first one. And they have another intro, because I think they did another one at the break. I think that's it. Truth be told, this is my preferred track. I like this track. By the way, Panu, Hinge, you notice my you notice the stream fucks up less on Fridays? Because I restart my computer first and I plug it into hardwired internet. Yeah, this is a rainbow please for sure. This is a rainbow please for sure. Oh, what a noob, I didn't fucking add spaces. If you guys don't have better TV, you're not going to see that emote. You can get any of your friends to watch? Are they real friends then? Are they real friends? Are they real friends is what I want to know. If you can't get your friends to watch Kill la Kill, are they real friends? It's a fucking question. It's like the only anime where there's so much fan service and it actually doesn't even bother me that much because it's so secondary. And the thing is, you know, when they talk about it, it's very much a statement. Like it's I mean, clothing is okay. So for those of you who don't know, in Kill la Kill, clothing is a huge metaphor, and it's a mega big theme throughout the whole series, and it's a very Japanese thing because all the people who are just kind of plebes and students, one, they're all very, they're dressed in the same outfit, which says something about them, and it's a statement about Japanese society. But also, two, people's powers are defined by their outfits and their uniforms, which is kind of also a statement in itself. At least it's plot link. That's right, Tyler. So what do we do here? Let's take a look at this. So when we looked at the Gata High School, we got quite a few colors here, but it's still very restricted. But in my opinion here, thanks Ian for the vibes, man. This is like, look at this. You would never. This is why the anime title segment is great, right? This is why I break it down for you guys. You would never see this when you're looking at this from when you're watching it sequentially. But when you're actually looking at it from the 20,000 foot view, look at the colors. We already got such strong colors here. And so I think this title sequence is super great. There's a couple things that I want to talk about. One is the type. The type is super powerful, but two, this battle between blue and red. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, I wonder if they changed no, they don't change the background type. I don't think that would even be possible, man. That would require you redrawing the scene. It definitely wouldn't. I think this type of thing only works well because of the type. So what we got here? So the first thing we see here, the Kill la Kill, the first scene we see, and the first thing we notice is this huge, exaggerated, I think they call it, I think it's called Raglan Punch is the typeface, but it's hand drawn. They retrace it. We get this huge, chunky, fat text with this really hand-drawn feel of the Kill la Kill. And this is a theme we see over and over again, and it's even used in the actual anime. When characters are introduced, it's not just used in a title sequence. When characters are introduced or something happens, it actually becomes a physical thing in the anime. It inhabits real space, and it has a density to it, even though sometimes it only appears 2D. It has a density to it in the anime. So this is a theme that we see throughout the series, this huge, chunky type. It becomes a stylistic and art direction that these guys took, and it's something that is seen throughout the whole series, which is really incredible. It's really nice to see that it's not only something in the title, it actually becomes an element in the actual show. Kirura Kiru, yeah, exactly. Sugoi for sure. Big Sugoi. So what do we have here? So we have the two main, I guess the protagonist and the antagonist, without spoilers, great eyebrows. We have Satsuki and Ryoko. So they're two sisters, and they are kind of the main plot drivers. So we have them here, and is that a spoiler? Shit. Oh yeah. Sorry, crap. Fuck. You're right. Not sisters. We have the two female characters, and so you're gonna notice that even right here, when we look at this, we see that Ryoko on the left is looking up, and Satsuki is looking down, and that already has created a height difference. And when we see this frame as a still, that magnitude and that change in scale becomes something that we see quite frequently in these title sequences. And the last interesting thing that you kind of see is because this type is so thick, it almost can be used texturally, and you're going to see that a bunch too. Not only is the type used to communicate something, but it's also a textural exploration. And I just think that's super, super interesting. So what do we have here? So this is the school. They show a scene here, and it's like this huge towering thing. But what does this make us feel? This school is meant to represent in the show this hierarchy and this huge system that's been put in place, and it's huge and it's blocky. What what does that remind us of? That reminds us of the type that we see. It's really cool. The building blocks that this whole city and this whole series is built on also mirrors the type. So now all of a sudden it doesn't seem like such an arbitrary choice. The setting and the type all seem to be mirroring each other. That's pretty interesting, right? And so here when we see the character intros, yes, we have that hand-drawn type. We kind of have these very hard geometric shapes juxtaposed with these organic hand-drawn things. And the way the motion goes, if you guys remember, it kind of pans to different parts. So it's imagine that these could be all on the same thing. And because I said before, clothing is a very important part of this series, we have this red thread that kind of traces it through. And that's also a metaphor that you hear. That's a saying when you hear about, literature and themes. There's a red thread that is continued throughout the story. So that's literal and metaphoric in this case. The angle also leans into the idea of bombastism with the typeface. Yes, definitely Panu. So here we see all the introduction to the characters, it being used almost like as a backdrop, but also too kind of as type. And it goes without saying, but it's worth noting here, that white, black, and red. So when you zoom out, especially in this first half, white, black, and red is one of the most classic combinations in graphic design. It's been used a million times in different places. In Bauhaus, it's been used. It's a very, very powerful color combination. And because the school is kind of has these totalitarian kind of themes and this very fascist kind of idea, it's like, who used black, white, and red? The Nazis in Germany, right? Like, it's a very powerful, historically a very powerful combination of colors that can be combined to convey quite a few things. It's a very strong color palette. It's a very powerful one, and one that's kind of meant to strike fear, but also represents strength and magnitude. So that's kind of where you're seeing that there. Not going to dwell too long on these. We're kind of seeing the same things here, but you can see how the block letters almost use the full space, the full negative space, the height of the frame. So that's really interesting, and they're not afraid to use scale here, which is really cool. It almost makes it, when you're looking at this nice and tight, it's almost like you don't even recognize these as letters anymore. They're almost just graphic elements or shapes, which is really, really cool. Thick for sure, Nima. Thick for sure. All right. We have this here. Yes. Cool. So moving on to the next parts, we have some silhouetted action, and this is where that dark, and when you think about this in motion, the motion really is what ties this together. But that black, that super high contrast, that evocative kind of color palette, and we see it here. And this isn't the first time you see some geometry being brought in. So they use the geometry as threads, but they also use it as a motif in the title sequence. Not too dissimilar to what we saw in the God of High School with the dots and the pluses. We have this interwoven kind of this lattice that keeps coming together that we kind of see here. So we see it here in the dome here, and it also constricts. It starts with black, and then you kind of see it shrink to kind of give you a really cool, interesting pattern. Yeah, that's just a fucking cool frame. That's just cool as hell. This is kind of where we're started to introduce to that hot and cold idea. Not too dissimilar to what we talked about last week when we talked about orange and teal. But here, instead of orange and teal, we're using blue and red, which is a pretty classic opposite color combo, representing the two forces in the show, but also a great way to kind of balance out these compositions here. So this is the start of the second intro, and they show a bit of it in the first intro. But what's really cool to me is this kind of 16-bit, this 18-bit language that is kind of used a bit in the UI in the show, but to me it really stood out in the opening. And we start to see these kind of squares here. What does that reminisce of? That's reminiscent of the design we see here in the lattice and the cloth to represent all those fibers constricting. And then so we get a bit of this here, we get the main character, and then it has a transition to kind of this very geometric, fiber-esque kind of thing. So everything's very kind of square, but it also, once again, mirrors the square and blockiness language of the text here. So it's like a really, really cool idea that all these kind of blocky square motifs can sort of persist. This is the first time that we are kind of introduced to the blue color palette, which represents the antagonist, Satsuki, or Satsuki, whatever it is. So Ryoko, obviously the main character, is represented by red, but now we're kind of brought into with this refrain on the second half of the series with the blue, with that kind of major plot reveal. Oh, I doubled up here. That's not correct. And I thought this was really cool too. Trigger, it's like, what does this typeface look like in English? Well, it still holds true. It's really fat, it's really huge, it's really, really blocky, and obviously feeds into this idea of the title sequence. So finally here, remember what we were talking about, that orange and teal before, and especially in contrast when it came to kind of some of these end sequences here. Oh, nice, Ian. This one here, we have very low contrast in here, so we want these people to kind of recede to the back. And what do we want to pay attention to? We want to pay attention to this main central figure. And look at kind of the composition here. It kind of, the way the motion works, it kind of swoops here. She kind of swoops down like this. It's a very, very dynamic pose. We have a lot of diagonal lines here, which is creating really good energy. But what do we pay attention to? We pay attention to her outfit and the highlights, because the red stands out so much on the blue. They're opposites on the color wheel. See if we can snag the color wheel again. And yeah, so, or not opposites, I should say, but yeah, exactly. And I think if we color grab that, that's actually probably not pure white. That's actually probably just a very, very light shade of blue. And you would hardly ever see, yep, I was right. So when we select that, that's the blue right there. It looks like white, and that's funny too, because that's a principle that you would often, you see people say things like absolute white. You would almost never see absolute white in any sort of real scenario. And the highlights, the brightest parts of your composition, are oftentimes going to be a shade, but it looks like white because in relative contrast to everything else, it's the brightest thing here. So because you said that was white, yeah, that's white for the composition, but in reality, that's really not actually that white at all. Look, when we look at the corner here. And let's just grab some of these other colors. Let's kind of see what we got here. We kind of got this dark blue here. We kind of got this, we kind of obviously have this really amazing bright orange. And then we have this really, really dark color here. Grab here. So this is, yeah, that is really interesting, right? Albers principle. Yes, mango. So, I mean, look at this. When we kind of pull these apart, it's like we have a really, really creamy, pastel-y, but contrasty. And like, look, when we look here, this looks like it should be red, but when we actually grab it, it's kind of an orange. And like, this is kind of a killer color palette. Like, yo, if you made an app with these colors, like, that would smash. You would find that shit on like Adobe and stuff like that. We'll probably grab one more blue because it's not really an accurate representation right now because we don't have another blue. So we don't really understand the full kind of spectrum here. But like, look at this. We got some really interesting things. Like, so this, look, without the orange, it's very clean. Like, these are all within the same kind of family, but all of a sudden when we add this orange, look how much it sticks out. It's so vibrant. It's like almost glowing. That's really cool. Doubled up, didn't mean to do that. And so we have the same kind of things here, They're continuing this color palette. Like, I bet you if we, let's bring these down. Oops. We bring this down here. Let's grab some of these colors. Like, the brightest part here, this looks like the white. It's actually more of a purpley cream, so that's kind of interesting here. Let's grab the darkest part of her hair. That's pretty much the exact same color. Pretty cool. I would assume so. That's pretty damn close. This blue right here is, you know, we could say that's kind of like a shadow. That's pretty fucking close. And then we have the same orange here. So they're being really, really consistent with their color palette choices. So it's like, it's essentially the same. And you can even see here, they don't want to draw attention to this. So what do? They desaturate this part of the outfit. So that's really not meant to draw attention. This is almost, I would not even include this in the color palette for this frame. It's all about her face here, and it's all about these colors. And look at this. Like the thing, like the principle I said last week, the place that when artists are drafting up the frame, the place that they want people to pay attention to is actually the place that's going to have highest contrast. So the contrast here is much lower. Let's pull the colors here. So when we pull this orange, it's going to be super, super dull compared to this. Yeah, look at this. It's like barely alive. You know, it's like a lot more muted. It's a lot less saturated here. And so when we actually take a look at that contrast, the contrast is much, much lower. So what does that do? That makes it seem like it's either in the foreground or the background, which, you know, is obviously to effect here. We want to be drawn to the person's face. And then what do we have here as well? Because the, you know, Satsuki's main color palettes are kind of blue. We still have this kind of, the color palette's almost the same, but instead with the orange, we have this low contrast here, but we have this really vibrant blue. So you can see here, this is actually probably, except for the, obviously the color, this is probably close to the same type of saturation. This is close to the same value. And so if we go here, it's very close to the, you know, the most concentrated. And if we go here, I bet you, look, it's very kind of hovering in the same kind of area on the side. So, you know, very, very close saturation. So I'm not surprised here. So that's really cool. Obviously they don't want to dial up the red on her. Maybe they could have done it here, but once again, that would have drawn attention to the wrong thing. So they use the same low contrast principle here, but they use the high contrast on her face between the, you know, the skin here and the eyes to really make it pop. So cool kind of duality here, and obviously they've mirrored the compositions. That's awesome. Time to cop the eye tracker. You already know, man. So the kind of the final thing that they do here is really cool. So blood is also a major theme in this, and without getting too much into what's actually happening, yeah, these guys slash each other up a lot, but look, we're still seeing those same kind of palettes. So once we rip this palette out here and that other one, it's essentially the same here, but we're still able to communicate something much different. So this looks like red, but when we actually already color picked this. This is like a really vibrant orange. Hey, Kamado, what's going on? That's a funny way of saying hi. And then so what do we do here? What are we seeing here? We're actually seeing, what did I say before? I was saying this big chunky text. This big chunky text has very architectural principles, and those are the types of principles that we're seeing here. And then what happens? We go full circle rather. And in the end, when we see the particles coming up and the blood splattering, yo, Ryan, what's going on, homie? What's going on, dude? Yes, the contrast is awesome. Yo, Ryan, we just plugged your t-shirt, man. I think we might have maybe got a couple sales from you. Raglan Punch, that's the one, dude. That's the fucking one. So when we talk about this, we actually see the type physically manifesting itself, and we have the blood splatter on it. What happens? We get that same kind of contrast. Yeah, we got to get on the T, man. We got to get on the T. So we still have the same color palette here. Look at this. We have this unbelievable continuity, and obviously the blood is just used as a motion mechanism to color the text here, but then we have the clean version, and like what happens? We have this huge magnificent text that comes out in the end, and of course it reveals that it's the same typeface, but now it's actually structural, which is really, really cool. And finally, we have kind of this really cool Kill la Kill thing where they're combining these really organic splatters with this really geometric kind of Kill la Kill, and the motion is kind of a squishing thing there. Ryan, let's go. Ryan, do you want to come on the chat and tell everyone about the about your team, man? So this is Kill la Kill I think this is a really, really great example. I think there's like a top tier anime titles. I mean titties. I mean titles. Example of of design found in anime titles. So yeah, I think there's a really great example, especially when you look at it from kind of the 20,000 foot view. Yeah, just a lot of really solid graphic design going on. So shout out to Studio Trigger. If you guys haven't watched, you guys gotta check out Kill la Kill. Perfect one to break down. I totally agree. Oh, Ryan, you little bastard, dude, you fucked us. All right, so if you guys want to check out Ryan's tea, Panu will link it in the chat. If you guys want to check out Sunday tea, we're gonna show it one more time. If you guys want to cop Wardell's merch. Oh, the shit's not sold out. Maybe we didn't do it limited. Maybe we made a ton. So what have we done today? We did a ton of shit. We had an Asher reveal. We did an unboxing. We talked about how we designed Wardell's merch.